guys so much, as always. What a beautiful season that we're in right now. And it's a wonderful time to be outside, and just been such a blessing. And we have had a real blessing going through this message series as we've talked about the spiritual 2-by-4 that James is, and how each week we enjoy getting kicked in the teeth. We got a couple more weeks to get kicked, and today it's going to be pretty rough. Okay, this was rough for me. It's one of the tough. And if you're like me, you always want to look ahead and see what's coming next. If you've been reading ahead, and a lot of you guys have studied James for your whole life, and so you know what's there, and you know where the subject lies today. Today's message is going to have some knockout blows with it, and that's just part of it. Sometimes we need somebody just to be really direct with us. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes we just have to have someone say, hey, this is what I see, this is what I hear, and this is what I know. And so if it's a trustworthy person that we have a good accountability relationship with, those words can really sink in. And so what this is God's word to us directly. And so when we read this, we need to accept it that way and understand that this is not something that I wrote. This is something that God inspired, and so we should take it to heart and help it change us. Our guiding point for today's message, and today's message is not a long one, but it's very direct and very simple. But this is the thing. Your words matter. Okay? Your words matter, and your response matters. And I think in today's society, where we live today, this is twofold, okay? Because your words matter and your response matter from here and also from here, okay? And if you have a social media presence or text messaging, okay, every word matters. There is no separation. So hear me say that to begin with. There's no separation. And so and you see that. And so we have grown up in the world, because this is the same thing. We look at it sometimes and it's like, well, the person that I know on Sunday morning is very different than the person that I know during the week, right? What do we call that? A hypocrite. Where does that come from? It's an old word, right? It's an old word. It was actually used back in the years ago in acting and in drama. An actor who played, they wouldn't have enough people to play in a play, and so you would have a person play a good person in a play, and they would also play the evil person or the mean person, and so they would be two different people in the same play, and they were said to be hypocritical. Okay, they were hypocrites. Because they were two different people. And so that's something that we have to understand, is that we can't separate ourselves and become someone else, right? I mean, we see examples of that in different things. And when you see people who are actors, or they are in a band or whatever, they have a different persona on stage or whatever, and then you get to know who that person is, it's like, that person's really not who I thought they were, right? Because they have a persona. And so that's something that we have to understand, that if you're like me and you just have a Facebook account or an Instagram account or you're on Snapchat or whatever it is, you don't have a persona that's different, okay? People see you online and that's you. You're one and the same. And so just take that with a grain of salt as we go forward and begin looking at where this is. Because here's the thing. Your voice matters. Your response matters. How you respond to people matters. Everything that you type is coming from you. And even the thing that I think it's even heavier in today's world, because it stays there. Okay? It stays there. It stays there forever in the internet. And so people screenshot things, and they have pictures in their phone of a text message or of a Facebook post, and they'll go back to it. And so it continually reverberates. And I think sometimes it has more impact than what we say in person verbally sometimes, and that certainly has a heavy weight. There are people following you that you don't know are following you. Okay? There are people following you that you don't know are following you. Everything that you do can be scrutinized. All right? And when I say your response matters, okay, if you're on a Facebook post, you can like it or you can react to it. Okay? You can hold that little thing down and say, I want to put a heart on this, right? I want to love this, right? I want to laugh at this, or I want to put a mean face, right? Listen, when somebody has a post on Facebook, they can go in and they pull up every person that responded to that, and they read that list of names, and then they look at how you individually responded to their post. That's when I say your response matters, because they sit there for just a moment and read your name and then read your response and then think about it. Think about the weight of that, okay? Think about the weight of that for the Christian. And here's the thing. Today's message talks about taming the tongue. But I want you to hear me before we even look at the scripture. What your fingers or your thumbs type on a screen is your voice to the world. It's your voice to the world. That's why we call it the World Wide Web. All right? Because it's out there. It's out there. And your response matters. I want to begin with a passage outside of James this morning that kind of frames up this to just a little to help us understand. Colossians chapter 4 and verse 6 says this. It says, "Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." Okay? Let your conversation always be full of grace and seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. You know, we have lots of conversations. Golly, we have so many conversations. There's so many people yesterday that I talked to from the time I got out of bed to the time I laid my head down to go to sleep last night. I don't even know if I could sit down and remember every person I interacted with, every conversation that I had, every subject matter that I talked about with somebody all the way through. And sometimes I stop at the end of the day and I think about all of those words, and I think about every conversation. And I think about conversations that were worthy. I think about conversations that may have been, I look at it and go, man, I spent a lot of time talking about nothing, right? But they all matter, right? And so we come to the end of a day and we think about all the things that we said and all the things that we did and all the people that we interacted with, and you just wonder, how could I have done that better? How could I have done that differently? James speaks about this in James chapter 3, and we're going to start with we're just going to read the whole passage first, and then I'm going to come back and we're just going to kind of pull this thing apart. And we're going to go top down this time. James chapter 3 verse 1 says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly." There's a lot there. "We all stumble in many ways. Anyone who is never at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check." When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Wow. We're going to go through this verse by verse, and listen, this one's tough, right? Because I myself fall into that category, and several of you do as well, that he outlines in verse 1, right? I mean, right at the outset, you read this, and it's like, what do you mean? You know, not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. Now, that's not just a public school teacher. That's people who teach small groups and Sunday school classes and Bible school classes and all of it. Why is that? Why does he say that? Why does he say those who teach, those are going to become, and I think it helps us to stop and think, because we who teach will be judged more strictly. What is that? It's a higher standard. It's a higher standard. And why? Because we have influence. Because we have influence. Every classroom that I ever went into in my life, and the teacher who was there teaching influences my life today. Some of them extremely positive. But there were some in that course of my career, from elementary school all the way through college, and every college class that I've ever been in, that it was maybe a negative influence. The way that they presented themselves, the way they presented their content, the way they presented themselves personally, I was like, you don't really need to be doing this, okay? Y'all probably had that before. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the reason for that is because we have influence. We influence young minds. We influence others. And when you've been given that opportunity, then that's something that you have to take seriously. We live in a world of social media, and if you don't know what an influencer is, you need to. You probably do, and if you don't, then you do and you don't know it, right? Because they're all over your news feed. They're all in your social media, because if they're influencers, they get lots of likes, lots of hits, and once they've accumulated that, then they show up all the time. And so, and they're everything from people who are political to people who like to cook or fish or whatever it is. They're social media influencers, and so they're selling products, right? And so they have an opportunity, because they have that presence. People will come and say, "Hey, will you mention what I'm selling here or what I'm doing on your page or on your whatever you have, so that people will see it and buy it." Right? And so it's influencing. And so when you have been given influence, you have to take it serious. Anytime that you're placed in a situation where you have influence over someone else, you have to take it seriously. I get frustrated sometimes with athletes, and we've seen this. When anytime that you're paid money to play a sport, you have been placed in a position of influence. And so when we see that, it's like, and when they do bad things and wrong things and terrible things, and they're like, I don't want other people. I just want to make money doing what I do. I want to make money running fast and shooting and hitting and carrying the ball and just live however I want to live. And I don't really want to, but I'm sorry, you do. You've been given a position of influence, and you have to take it seriously. And so that's just part of it. And so when you have that stage, when you've been given that platform, however it is and whatever it is, you've been given a position of influence, and that position of influence carries with it something, right? And so everybody looks at you. Everybody looks at you. Everybody wants to hear from you. Everybody wants to know you. And it's just one of those things when you've been given that title. And it's interesting how we respond to people, okay? It's interesting how we respond to people. Last year I went to UK for a week. And so I was there and with a bunch of other ag teachers and grad students, and we're all on a bus, right? And so we're riding the bus. We go out to Eden Shell Farm, and we're hanging around and doing all this stuff. And we're just a bunch of guys that are interested in beef cattle and animal science, and we're just having fun. We're in a class where we're going to cook hamburgers and make all this stuff, and we cook brisket, and it was just a fun class. It was just a week-long class, and so we were all together. So we started getting to know each other, and we had this one young man that came on the bus with us, and he was I thought he was a grad student. He was a grad student, and so his name was Brock, and so we introduced each other, and so everybody just hanging around. Well, in the course of the next couple of days, I come to find out that he's a UK football player, and then I come to find out that he's the quarterback, all right? And so once we find out that he's the starting quarterback for UK, now all of a sudden everybody looks at him differently. And by the end of the week, we all wanted to get a picture, right? And we all wanted to talk to him. And so all of a sudden, we're this guy that's just one of us, and he still was, but all of a sudden, he got changed into a place of influence. It's just a super neat guy. But he understood his role, and he understood what he carried. And so he didn't wear it on his sleeve. He didn't stand up on the bus and say, all right, guys, I'm the starting quarterback for the University of Kentucky football, and I expect you all to treat me differently. He didn't. He was just one of us. But when it became known who he was, he didn't change. He was just more friendly and more cordial. He's like, I don't care, whatever. And so when you've been put in a position of influence, you have to take it serious. Other people are watching. Other people are learning from you. Other people, and so what you say and what you do matters. Which leads us to how we actually make those decisions. Because here's the real thing, right? We understand, and it's not hard for me to help you understand that what comes out of here or what comes out of here matters. But how do we make the right decisions? Because sometimes I get mad. Sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I read something on the internet and it makes me go, and I don't like that, all right? And so how do you handle those emotions? And not just on the internet, in your own home. Sometimes kids do things that make us angry, all right? If you have children, bless you, right? I've raised two. I know what it is. Sometimes you just want to look at them and go, I need to count to 1,000, right? Because 3, whatever, I can't even think, right? I'm so mad at you. And so it happens. It's part of who we are. It's part of what takes place. So how do we get it in check? How do we make those decisions? James addresses it. Verse 2, he says, we all stumble in many ways. I get it. We're just human, right? Anyone who's ever at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check. And then he gives us some things here to help us understand. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey, we can turn the whole animal. All right? And some of you may be horse people. I'm not a super horse person, but I've been around them enough. And the bit's not compared to a 1,000-pound horse, okay, or a 1,500, whatever it is, a bit's pretty small. But when you put that thing in their mouth, over their tongue, you have a lot of control, right? You have a lot of control. I don't know if any of you have ever seen a twitch used, okay, where you get a hold of their lips. You can get control of a horse, right? You can get control of a horse. I've seen that happen. And so then once we have broken that horse to that bit, then once we have done that, then they are under control. What I consider to be a really under control horse, the best horse I ever rode, his name was Buzz. And Buzz was a cutting horse, okay? And I'm just going to tell you right now, we didn't do any cutting, all right? We didn't do any cutting. But Buzz did what I asked Buzz to do. When I said walk, he walked. When I said whoa, he stopped. All I had to do, I didn't have to use that bit. I just took the rein that was attached to the bit and touch it on his neck. He was neck reined. Oh, I'd never ridden one like that before. I was like, you just touch the rein to his neck and he turns left. You touch the rein to this end and he goes right. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is an amazing horse, right? He was broke. And he took his direction from his master. He took his direction from his master. The next thing that James talks about is, he said, or take ships as an example. Although they're so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Now, I'll tell you something about ships. I got a good friend who's a magician, a comedian, a comedy magician, and he travels all over the world. And I went with him this summer on a cruise to Alaska, and I've known him our whole lives. And so, but he, anytime that we're out or around or we were on there, he was showing me different things on the ship. And one thing is, if you've never noticed this before, and some of you may know this may be just regular knowledge for you, but you have a captain of a ship. Okay, every ship has a captain, but that captain cannot take that ship into port except his home port. Okay, every captain has a home port. A lot of them are in Greece, right? A lot of the guys who drive these cruise ships are Greek, and so they have their home port, and that's the only port that they can drive their ship into port and dock it. Every port has pilots. And so if you've ever been on a cruise and you've ever paid attention to it, then you know what I'm talking about, because you'll leave out of the port and you'll go out into you'll go out into the water and you'll get way out there, and then the ship will stop. And then this little boat will come out. It's usually a black boat that's got pilot written on the side of it. And this guy actually goes down the little stair thing or the little ladder off the side and jumps back on the pilot ship, and he goes back, right? And when I first saw that, I was like, well, that's kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, this guy here he's trained to drive this. I mean, he's a captain of a cruise ship. He should be able to drive this ship anywhere he wants to take it. Why would you need this guy, right? Why would you be? And so this is the story that he told me. There was a hurricane in the Caribbean, in the eastern, in the Atlantic, and so they were not in the hurricane, but they were close, right? And so you're in the outer rings, and so when you're in the outer rings or anywhere close to a hurricane, seas get rough, right? And so that's not the cruise you want to be in. Okay, it's not the cruise you want to be on. It's not the time you want to be on the ship. And so waves were rough, and this was one of his earlier cruises, and they were supposed to go into this port, and the entry to it was really narrow. It was a narrow passageway, and so there's no wind and no waves inside the passageway because it was cleared and blocked by land. But to get out of the main ocean and get into this channel was a challenge. And so he was actually up on the bridge, and he was watching this, and it was like, I don't know how, because as it says here, the wind will move you. And if you've been on just in a fishing boat, you understand. If you've ever been like on the Cumberland River down below the dam, and you're trying to get on a trailer, and they're really letting water out, and that thing's going. I mean, you got to know what you're doing. You got to pay attention just to get that little boat up on a trailer, right? You can imagine this massive cruise ship. And so they're coming in, and the ship, he would come, and then he was like, I don't know how this is going to happen. Well, the little pilot boat comes out through all these waters. This guy gets up, and he's got a guy with him. And they come up on the ship, and he's like, I got to go see this. So they go up on the bridge, and the pilot comes in. He says he comes in, he goes over, he makes him a cup of coffee, right? He gets him a cup of coffee, and this guy that's with him, he actually goes up onto the controls. And he said, pilot gets back there with this cup of coffee, and he said, the ship is way up this way. It's way north of the entrance. And they start going. And he said he just starts watching everything, and he starts telling that guy, do this, punch this, turn this, move the rudder this way. And he's just talking instructions, and he said, this boat is up here, and he said, as it comes down, they're using side thrusters and forward, and he said he gets right to the place, and he threads the needle, and the ship goes straight in to the port. And he sets his coffee down and goes down and gets on the boat. Now, what does that mean? Well, the pilot knows what he's doing, right? The pilot knew what he was doing. He knew his port. He had done that before. That was not the first ship he had taken into that port under those kind of conditions. He had done it before. He knew what to do. He knew what instructions to give. And so the ship will go where the pilot wants it to go. And so what we take from that is this. Who's your pilot? The words that come out of your mouth and the words that come off your thumbs, they're whatever the pilot tells them to be. And it's what we are putting in here is what comes out here, and that's what makes the difference. Your words should be guided by wisdom, and your wisdom comes from the Word. James says in verse 5, likewise the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, the world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and it itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. That brings us back to where we started. Your words matter. Your response matters. I was reminded this week. Sometimes when I just have a minute or two, I'll pull up Facebook and just kind of scan to see. And I saw this post from one of my former students, and it was just a cute little post. And she had a picture of her and her family, and she had a scripture, and then she had a little caption that she had written. She said, "I'm so thankful and I'm blessed." And she was one of my officers from several years ago on our officer team. And I just reached down and hit comment, and I said, "Beautiful family, I just want you to know that I'm very proud of you, very proud of what you're doing." And then I hit comment, went on about my day. It took me all of 10 seconds, right? later that night, when I sat down and was kind of reviewing the day, I looked down and it said that I had a notification, and I hit it, and she had replied to that post. She said, "Thank you, Mr. Hillard. Coming from you, that really means a lot." And you realize in that moment that your words matter and your response matters. It matters to people what you say. And so sometimes we can just be encouraging. I don't have time to comment on every one of your posts, okay? I'm proud of a lot of you too. I just may not have time. It may not pop up. But when I see that and when I do that, but her response back to me to say, "Hey, coming from you, that means a lot." And that's when you go back and review this whole thing, and you're like, I understand. I understand what he's saying, that we're held to a higher standard. A non-theological comedian, Andrew Dice Clay, back in the 1980s, was really harsh. And he used to say, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but my words leave permanent damage." And there was a lot of truth in that. No human being can tame the tongue. You have to let God. You have to let God. When you are spending time with that little child, and when you're bouncing them on your knee, and everything that you say to them has impact, right? And I think about that every time I'm with my granddaughter, every time that I'm with her and with either one of them. And so they're just now learning, and they're just now growing, and they notice and they remember. And so it astonishes me that Abby's 4 years old and how much she remembers things that happened 2 years ago. We go back to a place that we've been, and she remembers things, and she's recalling things from 2 years ago. And I'm scratching my head going, "You're 4? Right? You're 4 and you're remembering something that happened 2 years ago?" Your response matters. Your words matter. And you have to allow God to guide you in that. Listen, we have a responsibility as Christ followers to lead others to Him. And so our words that we say to people and our posts that we put on social media can, and in fact do, either welcome people in or drive people away. And we need to remember that, be conscious of that, and think about that every time we say something, every time we do something. Listen, there's a place for things. If somebody needs to be called out, social media is not the place. If you have a relationship with somebody, an accountability relationship with somebody, that needs to happen in person. There's scripture for that, okay? There's direction for that. There's direction where you take 2 people with you and 3 people, and you sit down and say, "Hey, we have concern. We want to pray with you. We want to support you. We want to be here to help you. We're seeing things that are making us uncomfortable, and we want to help you." That's how you do those things. You don't just fire random words off on Facebook or Instagram or wherever it is. If you don't have that relationship with that person, just zip it. And then pray for somebody who does. Pray for the person who does have that relationship to be able to connect with that person. And finally, this. Give God the reins. Okay? Let Him control the bit. Let him control that. He knows what's best, right? He knows what's best. When a jockey is a good rider, they know when to hold their horse, okay? They know when to hold their horse. If you watch them closely, you can tell. You can see. You can watch a jockey when he's holding a horse. When he's got the rein tight and he's got that horse's head back, that horse can't do. A thoroughbred can't let it go. And they'll do that, especially in the longer races. They'll do that in the first half of the race. They'll hold that head. And when it's time, they'll give the horse his head. You can watch them. They'll let that, when you see a jockey's arms go like this and them reins go down, he's free. All right? He can run. We got to give God the reins. Because if we just run unbridled, we'll run out of gas, and I've seen those horses. I've seen those horses come out of the gate, and man, here they go. And they get into the first turn, and it's like, I got nothing left, right? Because He knows what's best. He knows what's best. We've got to listen to our pilot, right? We can come up with all kinds of ideas. We can come into a situation where there's a storm, and it's like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. Or maybe we should ask the guy who's been in the same storm in the same place and seen it and created it. What should we do? Maybe sit down and have a cup of coffee with him and let him guide us. He'll get us home. He'll get us there. We need to pay attention to the one who created us. We need to give God the reins, and we need to let him be our pilot. And we need to take his direction, and he will guide us through the storms of life, and he will get us home safely. And the final question this morning is he your pilot? Right? Is he your pilot? You don't need God as your co-pilot. He needs to be the one calling the shots. And if you've never given him your life, right? If you've never given him your life, you can do that right now, right? You can do that right now. Give it all over to him, whatever it is, whatever you struggle with, whatever it is. When you give him your whole life, he'll take it. And we need to put that word that he has, that he's given us, into our heart and let it guide us.